good question from our buddy Luis Guarina on YouTube. He asks if I have any books that I would recommend for BJJ training, martial arts, and life. Luis, thanks for the question, brother. I'm not going to touch on the whole idea of life. I don't think I'm qualified to talk about that, but I will share a few books with you. Actually, I'll share a couple, too. Books that have helped me with my jiu-jitsu training and made a big impact on me in that place. So the first book that I'm going to share with you guys today is Talent is Overrated. So this is a good book that I got a hold of right when I started training full-time. So in 2010, I made the leap to doing jiu-jitsu full-time, training full-time, and running the gym type thing, right? And at the time I was rolling just all the time. So I would come in a lot of times 7 days a week and I would train and roll. And because I was training 2 to 3 times more than I was previously, I thought that I would get 2 to 3 times better, right? So I was like, okay, great, this is gonna be awesome. Well, what I quickly realized was that that's not the way that it works. There's a point of diminishing returns, and a lot of it comes down to sort of training with a purpose, right? I didn't have one. I was just rolling and I was just crossing my fingers. Oh, we're gonna get better here, we're gonna get better. Well, in the book, especially in chapter 6 is when he touches on it a lot, is talks about deliberate practice. And with deliberate practice, what he means is training with a purpose, right? Not just coming in and going through the motions, actually focusing on something. And so in the book, he gives some examples of these different people, these different world-class performers. And one of the common threads that they all share is that they all practice deliberately. So an example of this is that they took musicians, right, these violin players, and they would play this song over and over and over again, just play it just over and over, and to the point, thousands of times, to the point where it wasn't fun. It required a ton of conscious effort just to get through it. It was satisfying when it was done because they knew they improved, or that they know they're making themselves better, but to actually get through that monotonous grind, it took a lot of effort. Now you can quickly realize, okay, how that's going to cross over to jiu-jitsu. So rolling, right, that's just fun. Rolling, it's so enjoyable. I mean, it can be tough when you get into some hard training sessions, but for the most part, your brain is able to kind of turn off a little bit, and you're just out there just moving with everything. The hard part a lot of times is the drilling, because it requires a lot of conscious mental effort. That's why if you get into a class and you watch people, a lot of times towards the end of the drilling session, right, people are starting to slow down. They might even, if you're at a gym where, like, you know, if you're just doing a couple reps or whatever, you'll see guys just kind of start to talk, right, and they're not really drilling anymore, because it does take a lot of mental effort, and it can be exhausting to drill. It's not as taxing maybe physically as rolling, but mentally it requires a lot more conscious effort to continue to do these repetitive motions. But it has a huge beneficial effect, because I know that after reading the book, I started to kind of say, oh, okay, I should be drilling more. So I started to drill more, and there was a lot of stuff coming out at the time. I remember Andre Gaval's Drill to Win book came out, and there was all these different resources that were all kind of saying the same thing: you need to drill more. Sure enough, I started to drill more, and my game got exponentially better. Right? I can't say that enough. I didn't just get better, I got way better than what I used to be. And I was able to compete at a higher level, I was able to train better, and honestly, you know, I was able to train more effectively. And so that's a big thing. And then for some of you guys that say, well, I don't have a ton of time to drill, I just always going to cover you guys. One of the things that you can do is, again, training with a purpose. Let's say that you've been working on a technique, maybe in class or whatever, or you've seen a technique that you want to try. When you hit the mats, don't forget about that technique. Say, all right, I've been working on these arm bars, let me actually try to hit these arm bars in class, instead of stepping onto the mat rolling and just kind of, I'm here, whatever, okay? And again, there's a time to just turn the brain off, especially if you've had a stressful day, whatever. But if you're trying to improve in a particular area, you have to focus on that and really, you know, work towards that, instead of just getting in on the mat and then you start to try to work towards something new and then abandon it halfway through just to go back to what you're normally used to. So the next book that I would recommend is The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. And I don't actually have my copy with me here at the gym, but I've talked about it in other videos. And one of the big takeaways that I got from that book, and there's a ton, but again, one of the takeaways I got from it was the lunch pail mentality, and taking that to, you know, our training, and taking that to our jiu-jitsu training. So again, the way that he talks about it is any creative endeavor that you get into is eventually going to become a grind, right? It's not going to always be as fun as it used to be. And, you know, he makes this distinction amongst the amateur and the professional, and one of those is that the professional just does it. And so an example that he uses in the book, again, is, and that we all understand, is we've all had a job that we didn't like, but you got up and you went to work anyway. You got up in the morning, put your clothes on, brushed your teeth, whatever, got out the door, you went to work. And you did it because you know you needed to, you had to, right? Well, with your training, you kind of have to put that same mindset on yourself. Obviously, you don't have to train jiu-jitsu, but if you want to improve, you have to get through the grind, and it's not always going to be as fun. Like if you're a brand new like white belt watching this, man, jiu-jitsu is probably amazing right now, but eventually it's going to turn into a grind, and it is going to be enjoyable. It's still going to be fun, but there are going to be days where you don't really want to be there, and you need to push yourself and do it anyway. And just on personal experience, I can think of some of my best days in training, some of my best ones. And they were not days where I wanted to be there initially. I started off, getting to the gym. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be here today. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, whatever's going on, right? There's a million things happening in my brain. Training is not really what I was focused on. And then I get there, and it ends up being one of my best training sessions, and I'm so happy that I went through and did it anyway. And again, I can't think of a time when I went to the gym where I was bummed out that I made it to the gym, right? I mean, when have you ever said that to yourself? When have you said, man, I'm really upset that I got to the gym today? Probably never. So you need to adopt that grinding sort of mentality to training, because again, you're going to hit those speed bumps. It's going to be rough sometimes. In jiu-jitsu especially, the progress and the getting better sort of comes in ebbs and flows. Sometimes you don't feel like you're getting any better, and all of a sudden you seem to shoot up, and then but you're back down to hitting this plateau for a while, then boom, it seems to shoot up. So the progress is not linear. So those are 2 books for you. So again, this video is kind of long. I'll cut it out. But the idea is, one, from the Talent is Overrated, add some direction and some purpose to your training. And then from The War of Art, adopt the lunch pail mentality. Get in there and grind, even when it's not fun. Do what you need to do to get better. Luis, thanks for the question. Guys, hope that helps.